Deadly Valentine by Carolyn Hart. This book is read by Kate Redding. 1. The face might have been sculpted in stone. It wasn't simply from absorption in a delicate, tedious task. Oh no, it was more than that, much more. The taut muscles reflected icy determination, ruthless decision, implacable resolve. The gloved hand worked patiently, skillfully with the cut-out letters, plucking them from their separate piles, applying glue with a toothpick, placing them neatly against the heart, scissored from scarlet construction paper. Finally, it was done. A derisive, merciless smile touched the artist's mouth. 2. Sidney Cahill was determined not to cry. Crying made your eyes red and swollen, and it never helped. Despite her resolution, more hot tears welled. She grabbed a tissue and carefully patted her eyes dry. Swallowing jerkily, she leaned anxiously toward the mirror. Did she look dreadful? Soft black hair framed a face as delicate and translucent as porcelain. When Howard fell in love with her, he had told her she had skin as smooth as a gardenia. Your hair, your eyes. In her memory, his voice was soft, tender, loving. Now he was cold and aloof. Now his eyes didn't follow her when she crossed the room. Now there were no more presents, no more surprises. Now he didn't come to her. Frantically, she reached across her dresser for her jewel case. Opening it, her eyes darted from memento to memento. That jade pin from Carl, the little intaglio ring of onyx from Bruce. She smiled tremulously. Oh, that lovely butterfly pin, a golden filigree inset with crystals, from Bobby. Her breathing quieted. She picked up one piece, then another, remembering the giver and the love. Without warning, tears brimmed again, hiding the bright glitter of the stones, the glisten of the gold. Sidney snapped shut the jewel case and stumbled to her feet. She ran to her bath and splashed water on her face. Her reflection was blurred in the mirror. Gently, Sidney caressed her skin with the soft face towel and remembered the night that Howard had dried her body, wet from the hot tub, in a luxurious beach towel, and love. Her heart cried out for love. 3. Joel Graham typed slowly, clumsily. His dad had made him take typing last year instead of study hall. As usual, he had put forth as little effort as possible. Still, it had almost been worth the boring time it took, because his dad got him an Apple computer, and Jesus, it did make school easier. Old hag-faced Thompson, the typing teacher, was right about that. And all those neat games. Joel finished typing the title of the essay. The stupid required essay. An embarrassment of roaches. He snickered and spaced back to make the correction. An embarrassment of riches. Mrs. Borelli made them write one goddamn essay after another, and she picked the topics, so what was he going to write about? What did he have too much of? Then he thought what he had that probably not one other stud in the senior class had. God damn, wouldn't he love to write it all down? Women lusting for him. Older women. He could have them whenever he wanted. At least he could have until yesterday afternoon. That had been a hell of a deal. He still felt half mad sending him home like he was a kid, his pants unzipped. But it had its funny side, too. He'd never forget the look on their faces. 2 of them. Hot for his body. Be a hoot to write it all down. Mrs. Borelli would have a seizure. Joel moused the cursor backward, wrote, an embarrassment of bitches. He moved uncomfortably in his chair. Shit, it made him horny. He glanced at the clock. Maybe he could get some later tonight. 4. Annie Laurance Darling was in a snit, which she thought she'd successfully concealed from her husband. It didn't help her mood when Max grinned at her, that devil-may-care, damnably attractive grin as they parted on the fog-shrouded boardwalk, each destined for his own establishment of business, and said cheerily, "Hope you feel better soon." "I feel fine," she'd retorted furiously. A benevolent smile this time, which almost prompted her to explode, but she contained her outrage until she'd slammed shut the front door of Death on Demand, which rustled the line of decorative lace-edged red valentines strung above the center aisle. "Fine," she said aloud. Her voice echoed down the central corridor of her beloved mystery bookstore. She flicked on the front lights. Tiny claws clicked against the polished heart pine floor, and the new feline Dorothy L. frolicked into view. She was already purring. Annie reached down to pick up the kitten, then paused as an awesome growl reverberated, competitive on a sound scale with a Peterbilt truck in fourth gear and straining. "Oh, Agatha," Annie said sadly. Agatha crouched atop the bookcase devoted to Agatha Christie, for whom she was named. Amber eyes glowing with fury and heartbreak, the sleek, elegant black cat revved her growl another notch. Annie stepped toward the bookcase, hand outstretched. "Agatha, love, please don't be so angry. Please. I still love you. You're the #1 cat, the best cat, the prettiest black cat in the whole world." A whip-quick paw, claws extended, snaked through the air. A livid scratch welled blood on the back of Annie's hand, and a flash of ebony signaled Agatha's abrupt departure into the darkness of the American cozy area between the south wall and a row of diagonal bookcases. Dorothy L. twined around Annie's ankles, her good humor undiminished by the older cat's rage. Annie grabbed a Kleenex from the box behind the cash desk and pressed it against the bleeding scratch, then sighed, scooped up the kitten, and started down the central aisle to the back of Death on Demand. Her goal was the coffee bar, which also, most importantly to felines, was the feeding area. "Agatha doesn't mean to be ugly, Dorothy L., but she's heartbroken. You see, she was the only cat. She's dreadfully jealous of you." Dorothy L., her purr a paean of happiness, wiggled from Annie's hand and wobbled up her arm to poke a tiny pink nose in her ear. Putting the kitten down behind the coffee bar, Annie opened a can most succulently labeled Choice Cuts and Cheese, which she apportioned into 2 bowls. "Agatha, come here. Breakfast time." Agatha, of course, didn't come. As Cleveland Amory explained so clearly in his delightful book, cats don't come. "You don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face," Annie called as she measured water and coffee. No Agatha. "Agatha, it's childish and silly to be jealous." No Agatha. Dorothy L. finished her bowl and stepped to the second. "And you're going to be rotund. You can't eat for 2 cats." Scooping up the fluffy white kitten, Annie carried her back up the center aisle, tucked her on an afghan behind the checkout counter, and went in search of Agatha. She found her finally, hunkered beneath the delicate fronds of a Whitmani fern. Agatha would not be cajoled, entreated, or enticed, ignoring even a fresh offering of salmon. The look in her burning eyes would have daunted even Nero Wolfe. Defeated, Annie walked morosely to the coffee bar. She studied the shelves filled with mugs. Upon each mug was inscribed the title of a famous mystery. Annie picked up No Hero in honor of John P. Marquand's first Mr. Moto book, because Annie clearly was no hero to a certain enraged cat. She poured a cup of Kahlua fudge, but not even the sinfully delicious brew could lift her spirits. Annie felt like a criminal, a betrayer, a heartbreaker. And anybody who didn't think a cat could be jealous, unforgivingly, furiously, pitiably jealous, just didn't know much about cats. Or people, came the insidious thought. She was not jealous. Of course not. She was too mature, too certain of her relationship with Max ever to harbor the faintest inkling of jealousy. Agatha stalked into view, her eyes seeking the hated kitten. Reaching the bowls, she sniffed, growled again low in her throat, then bit into her food. "Don't growl and eat," Annie warned. "It will ruin your digestion." Agatha ate, growled, growled. Annie sipped her coffee.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?